So, right guys, professional programming today. We have a couple of things that I'd be interested in. One was talking about continuous integration and Travis and build systems, particularly if you're wanting to move beyond just doing things on your own machine, then and you want to build an automated process. Then we've got a couple of tools to discuss. One is the one we have on site, which is the Bamboo, which is the Atlassian's stack of continuous integration. So we've got a Bamboo client running, and also Travis CI is often used by people because you can do online builds, and there's a free tier which allows you to kind of start playing with Travis CI before you have to pay for things, and to discuss what continuous integration looks like and what it means. Right? Now, I was also hoping to do some code reviews, because now we're getting far enough along that some of you should have more code that you'd like to show us so that we can give you feedback on it. Right? Because we've done the Unreal stuff, which was great a couple of weeks ago. So, do any of you have code that you want to show today? It would be nice, right? It's also this is something for you guys, right? Because so to get feedback. Now, one of the challenges of being a programmer is to get beyond the being embarrassed about your code, right? Because you have to show other programmers your code, right? And again, I'm not going to grade you on how your code is currently, right? I'm not going to look at it and go, right, oh, you did badly, so I'm going to fail you right now, right? That's not how this works, right? If we look at it now and I can help you make it better, you can document the process of making it better, and then I can grade you on your understanding of how you improve code, right? But if you never show me your code, I can't help you and discuss the process of making that code better. So you're kind of like fiddling in the dark looking for a way to get better code, right? So it is quite important to show you code even at an early stage, right? Even when it's not so good. And you guys saw my code from my PhD, which was terrible, right? And, you know, I know what it's like to code under pressure. So I'm quite happy to see whatever code you've got. So if you guys are happy to show, we'll just talk a wee bit about continuous integration, and I'll show you the intro to Bamboo video, right? So rather than me like having to rewrite the video, I'll show you what the intro to Bamboo. They'll discuss how Bamboo works as a continuous integration, and then we can discuss how you guys can use it. So, have you guys been introduced to continuous integration? Have you used any continuous integration tools? You guys haven't?
Yeah, we use Bitbucket and Travis, I think.
Right, so you integrated Bitbucket with Travis. Yep. So, and you guys are using that this semester, or you used it last?
We use it now. We also tried TeamCity, and we tried Jenkins, but Jenkins was pretty horrible.
Yes. We also have a Jenkins server locally. So we have on our dev IMT machine, we have Jenkins and we have Bamboo. Bamboo's the Atlassian commercial version, which, because we're using it in classes, we can get it for free, which is why we can yeah, otherwise you have to pay. But yeah, Travis is also quite nice to use. So what I'll do is I'll take you through the intro to Bamboo, and what we'll do, we'll pause it, and you guys can ask, and we can kind of discuss what they're describing, right? Because here, this intro is a relatively fast intro. Apparently, I need to find a way of getting the audio to work.
Jobs, stages, and plans. Today we're going to really get to know them. It won't happen unless and until all the test jobs complete successfully, so we don't deploy a bad build.
Okay, I don't know why that one was still going. Okay, so we can go back here. Okay.
Welcome. If you're just getting to know Bamboo, you may have been introduced to the 4 building blocks that Bamboo uses to structure builds: tasks, jobs, stages, and plans. Today we're going to really get to know them and understand how this structure compares to other continuous integration tools you may have used. If you've worked with continuous integration servers in the past, you're probably familiar with the concept of jobs.
Okay, so you guys haven't really worked with them before, some of you have. So the idea of jobs is that when you need to do a continuous integration build, right, there's a job to do, right? And so you configure different responses to triggers, and a job is a response to a trigger.
These are sort of the basic or most atomic unit in several CI servers, and you can chain these jobs together so that you're actually running several jobs each time a build is launched.
Okay, so for example, a job could be your running a linter, could be a job that you do, right? So you say, right, when I've committed code, I could have my continuous integration server do a check to see if the code's compliant with the syntax style I want. Run it, build it to see if it compiles. Run this set of tests against it. Run this other set of tests against it. Try and deploy it into a Node.js server, on a test server, to see if it then is functional on the web, right? So you've got all these different jobs you can do, and some of those you need to do in specific orders.
But the chaining configuration can get pretty tedious and brittle if you only have a one-to-one upstream-downstream relationship to work with, especially if you want to run some jobs simultaneously, then execute a single job when all the parallel jobs complete. In this case, you have to take a guess at which of the parallel jobs will finish last and chain your downstream job to it. But what happens when some other job finishes last? Or worse, what happens when some other job finds a regression? You certainly don't want to promote a bad build to the next environment, so you have to figure out some way to encapsulate all the parallel jobs and stop the whole works if there's a failure in any one of them. Bamboo is a little bit different. Bamboo starts with the assumption that you will want to chain steps together, and whenever possible, you'll want to run steps in parallel. So it's designed to make both that build flow and that encapsulation really easy to set up.
Now, something the way that that's been presented is that the standard thing is to do things in parallel, and then it's always a challenge of which one to pick that runs last, right? So you guys, have you done much multi-threading and the issues of things finishing at different times? Race conditions? Yeah. So the idea, as soon as you're doing anything in parallel, you've got a race condition. Now, what normally you do for continuous integration build, although they're talking about that being like, this hierarchy, usually you just do it in a straight sequence, right? So that problem of what happens if one of them is slow, or what happens if one of them fails and the others don't, because you've got it just in a single line, every single item has to pass anyway before you continue to the next, right? So the default in most CIs is actually it doesn't do things in parallel. It doesn't utilize a lot of the parallel possibilities, except if those are kind of non-critical. Right? If there's something you just wanted to do anyway, like sending an email to you to say that the bill's up, right? If that email failed, you wouldn't want to stop publishing the result just because your email happened to fail, right? Because that's not critical to the build process, right? So it's when you have parallel tasks that are non-critical that you
If we
branch.
diagrammed a typical build chain in Bamboo, it would look more like the diagram shown here. So let's abstract that out a bit. The atomic unit in Bamboo is called a plan. Plans are made up of one or more stages. Stages are made up of one or more jobs, and jobs are made up of one or more tasks. Now that might seem like a lot of moving pieces, but they all have their purpose, which will become clear as we look at each of those elements in more depth. And look, unless you're making a Hello World app, build engineering is complicated. There's just no getting around that.
So yeah, basically you think, toughen up. Unfortunately, for most of the stuff we do at university, we can't make them complex enough for you to require this level of automation. Right? So you guys are using Travis, but you could probably do it manually, realistically.
Yeah, on the server side, which I'm responsible of, we use Bitbucket, but on the client side, which he is responsible of, we use Travis. So you have to ask him. Sounds very good. No, I didn't do it yet, actually. That's not one case. But Marcus, but the other one was working with it, is using it. I would get a chance to look at it.
Yeah. No. So the thing about learning to use a complex tool, or using a tool which is designed to solve complex problems, is that often those are not the problems you guys currently have, right? Because it's only when you're in a team of 30 or 40 and you've been running the project for 2 or 3 years, where if you don't have all of this stuff set up, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, right? While it's small, while you can hold the whole project in your head in one moment, then you don't need so much documentation and you don't need so much overhead of infrastructure. The problem is, as your projects get bigger than your head, then no one person can hold the whole project in their head at one time, and so they don't know what the state of everything is. Right? Now we hope with your bachelor theses you get to that point, right? That the projects start to be big enough that you can't have an overview of what's going on everywhere in one person's head. You're already, with you guys, you've gone server, you've gone client, so that you can keep all the server in your head, right? And it's simple. You've got enough structure, but you're partly doing that is by saying, well, I'm not going to worry about all the details of what's happening in the front end. Right? For most bachelor projects, they're small enough that one person could actually keep the whole project and do the whole project and keep it in their head. But as you get bigger, you just need more tools. Now, this diagram, as you're saying, looks complex, but the idea is that if you're going to do things in parallel, you need some bottlenecks, right? You need to let people go off in parallel and then come back to a synchronization point, and then go out in parallel again, and then come back to a synchronization point, right? If you so any of you done any GPU programming? No? Okay, so on the GPU, because it's got thousands of cores, what it operates in is what's called waves, right? So you start a process across all the cores, it does that processing, and then if some of the cores, some of the processes on your chip finish early, they have to wait for every single one of the processes to be finished through that phase, and then the memory is written, and then you come back and you start the next wave, right? So you operate in these synchronous waves, and that means that at the end of each wave you have this bottleneck, you have this resynchronization. If you're doing OpenMP or you're doing any parallel programming, there are specific commands that handle synchronizing multiple parallel tasks, right? So, because you guys did some threading with the operating system course, right? And so you had flags and semaphores. Yeah. So you can use a barrier to make sure that when you need multiple things to finish all at once, you wait until they're all finished. And that's basically what they're doing here, is they're saying, well, instead of having everything being able to run at any time, we'll narrow it down and create specific bottlenecks. So tasks, right? So task, run in serial. If you want something to run in parallel, you have jobs, because jobs run in parallel, tasks run in serial. And so within a stage, they say all of these jobs could run all at parallel, but within them they have a set of instructions that run in sequence. And then they say, well, we need more complexity than just that, because we couldn't just start everything at once. So we have another layer where we have stages, where we do all the jobs in this stage all run at parallel. When that stage is finished, then we move on to the next stage, right? So rather than having a kind of everybody to everything way of doing things, they have stages run in sequence, jobs all run in parallel, tasks run in sequence. Right? So you can imagine if you're cooking in a restaurant, you might have someone who was working on, like, if the stages were entree, main, and dessert would be stages, right? And so you don't want to bring out the mains until everybody's finished their entrees, right? But you could be sending out entrees, you could be working on entrees in parallel, right? But within an entree, I'm still going to have to do, like, make the entree in the sequence of the recipe, right? So I'm still going to have to boil the egg before I cut it up and put it on the salad, right? So there's a sequence of these things that has to happen, and that's kind of like those tasks are a single recipe. Jobs are each recipe that you're going to have for an entrees, and entrees are a stage which you move on to. Mains can be done in parallel, and desserts can be done in parallel. Right? Now, the difference here is, of course, what you do in a restaurant is you do all of them all at once and then just take them out in that way. But hopefully that's understandable.
If it were easy, we wouldn't need people with specialized skills like you. So our mission with Bamboo is to make your job suck less. Hopefully a lot less. Now let's go through each of these building blocks from the ground up, starting with the task. Tasks are the fine-grained instructions for building, testing, packaging, and deploying your code. There are 4 basic flavors of tasks, shown here with some examples.
So we also have in here, on our dev.imp on the Confluence page, we actually have the Bamboo, oh, I thought I had it set up there. Obviously I didn't have it set up there, so now I have to actually find it. Professional version, there it is. That's why I couldn't find it. I had it on the wrong slide, so I'll put it in here. So just to show you that we do actually have this, here is our Bamboo. Oh, that's why it wasn't finding me. We won't save for the moment. Okay, so this is our Bamboo server. I've currently got one group who have been using it. So our 4th year students used it last year. So this is the example of their continuous integration, which is why they used it last semester. It has a plan for their continuous integration, and their climbing accident registry was their car. So this was they'd done 21 builds, 76 successfully, and 16 seconds was the average duration for the build time that they're using, right? So, and I am logged in, but so you can have a look at the recent failures, so you can see what failed. Time taken to fix 5 build, 26 minutes. So manual run. So here it's a manual run where he's triggered the build himself, right? He's gone in there and said, right, build this and deploy it and see how it works. Rather than having it triggered directly from the repository which you build from, right? So yeah, so this is our continuous integration server that you guys can connect to the Bitbucket accounts you have or GitLab accounts. And if I go back to the video, which is this one, no, not that one, this one. Do you guys all recognize all of those things? So you recognize Git, HG is, anyone know what HG from a checkout source control would be? Mercurial. So and SVN and CVS. P4 I haven't used, but that might be Perforce, might be P4, I'm not sure. But you know Ant, Maven, MS Build? Do you know Maven? Yeah, so you use Maven for the Android stuff, yeah? Or do you use Grunt? I mean not Grunt, I mean Gradle. So yeah, so Rake and Grails are all build engines. Code coverage, static analysis, and performance testing. So and deploy it. You can't see it there, but it says Tomcat, Heroku, JBoss, Live Label, Artifactory, and deploy it, and SCP. So, you know a Tomcat server? Yep, so Tomcat and Heroku is for parallel builds.
An important thing to know about tasks is that they execute one at a time in the order you specify. If a failure is encountered, Bamboo will complete that task to whatever extent possible, then stop the entire build. Tasks run sequentially inside their container, which we call a job. Grouping tasks into jobs is how you tell Bamboo in what order your task must be run. And because it's possible to run 2 or more jobs simultaneously, jobs provide a way to organize your build into tasks that are dependent on each other and tasks that are independent. For example, you might want to run checkstyle on your code before building it, the idea being that if there are too many violations, we won't even bother compiling. To accomplish this, there are actually 3 tasks involved, and they all have an upstream-downstream relationship. First, check out the code from source control. Second, run checkstyle. Third, do the actual build. These tasks are grouped together in a job because they need to be executed in a certain order. Other places in your pipeline might include steps that are completely independent of each other and can be executed simultaneously or in no particular order. You may have one task that runs integration level tests and another that runs UI level tests. To save time, you can put those tasks into separate jobs, allowing them to be run in parallel so long as there are enough build agents available to do so. Jobs execute in parallel inside their container, which we call a stage. Stages provide an easy way to group jobs that are independent and run them in parallel. It's also how we can ensure that other jobs are run alone or in a certain order. Simply put, stages are how we control the flow of job execution. Within a stage, jobs will be run simultaneously if there are multiple build agents available. In other words, don't put the job that deploys your application into the same stage as the job containing your compile step. There'd be nothing to deploy, and the build would fail unnecessarily. In addition, Bamboo will wait until all jobs in the current stage are finished before moving on to the next one. Even if one job completes several minutes before the others in its stage, which thereby frees up a build agent, Bamboo won't start executing jobs in the downstream stage until all the others complete, and complete successfully. That might seem like a small thing, but it has big implications for making continuous delivery pipelines. Really, it's kind of the special sauce that makes this easier to do in Bamboo than in any other CI server. Let's say we want to run multiple test jobs in parallel against a QA environment before pushing the build up to the next environment. Stages ensure that the deploy won't happen unless and until all the test jobs complete successfully, so we don't deploy a bad build. Stages make it really easy to go back and forth between running jobs in parallel and running them sequentially. That's a big difference from the rigid upstream-downstream relationship other CI servers use, which can be very limiting and make your pipeline brittle. Lastly, a stage can be designated as manual, which really just means push button. Let's say, for example, that you want to build with every commit and test that build in a pre-production environment. But you don't want to push every single build to production. Simply make the deploy to production stage manual. This way, Bamboo will automatically execute all the stages up to that point with every commit. And when you're ready to deploy one of those builds, simply locate it in Bamboo and push the button to resume execution of the pipeline. This way you can have a single pipeline configured that runs all the way from your source code out to production and still control when those last steps are executed. Stages execute sequentially inside their container, which is called a plan. The plan is your whole build pipeline from start to finish. Plans can be triggered by changes to source control, they can be scheduled to run at certain intervals, or run only when a human comes along and pushes the go button. Plans also have parent-child relationships, where the successful completion of the parent plan triggers the start of one or more child plans. You can also override a handful of global configurations on a per-plan basis to fine-tune them. Maybe you want to give certain users administrative permissions, but only to 1 or 2 plans. Maybe you want to keep most build results around for 3 weeks, but on one particular plan you'd like to keep them longer. If you want to play around with these kinds of settings, the help docs will guide you through the mechanics of it. So let's wrap it up and review. Tasks run sequentially inside their jobs, jobs run in parallel inside their stage, and stages run sequentially inside their plan. By compartmentalizing build steps this way, Bamboo gives you the perfect blend of power, flexibility, and control. Thanks for watching. Now don't just sit there, build something.
Okay, so that was them finishing up. So the concept here is that, and the reason why I showed the video is to say that the first stage of doing continuous integration is basically the webhooks approach, right? So if you say, you know how I talked you through a few weeks ago, the idea of semantic commits, and you guys, are you mostly using smart commits on your repos? A number of you I've added to have smart commits. You guys are using smart commits, and are you using the like hash time and saying how much time you're committing to the projects? No, but you could be. So if you're using the Bitbucket and Jira, then you can use smart commits, where you put into your commit message additional information about what you're doing. Now here, one of the things you can do is, they're saying, you know, you can make push to production a manual press button. One of the things we did with Webhooks, and we can show you how to do that, is in your commit message, you could add the word release, right? And then what you do is you have a webhook that looks for the string release in a commit message. If it sees the word release, it then immediately loads, triggers the pull the code, compile the code, and deploy it to the server, right? So it could trigger that whole sequence of actions. Particularly if you're running on Linux, you'd write a script that did that, and when you see release, you run that script, it goes in and does everything you need to do, right? And in fact, this is what I did when I first started teaching in Norway. I was teaching a web programming course, and so we set up the post-commit hooks on the repository so that when you said release, it would take it and deploy it to the server, so you could then see that it was running globally, right? Rather than you having to manually FTP things from your local machine to the server and from the different servers. You just had that run from a word. What would be the problem of using the word of searching for the string release in a commit message? Do not release would send release. So usually what you do is you search for the word release either after a hash release. So you say, no, this is an instruction, so I'm going to do this thing, or within square brackets or something like that, right? So you don't just look for the string release, you look for some marker saying, I really mean this, right? So the idea of these systems and the complexity of multiple stages is about taking a look at what you are needing to do and improving the quality of life, we often call it, of the process around deploying, building, and testing. Right? I'm sure a lot of you in first year, when you were first starting to learn to program, spend a lot of time typing the same thing in to stand it in. Do you remember the pain of testing by where you had to type in a whole bunch of numbers? Would that be consistent? And did you at every stage write a text file and pipe it in to your program? No? Do you know how you would do that? So you do know that, like, when you create in Visual Studio, when you create an executable, you can drag and drop a text file onto the executable in Windows, and it will treat that text file as standard in to that program. You didn't? Yeah, you can do that. That's what Windows does, right? If you drag and drop a text file onto an executable, it'll treat that text file as standard in, which means you can write and it will start running that program, right? Because it's going to execute that program with that text file, right? So, you know, and if you write your text file to take input from standard in, you could also do it in command line and pipe a text file into an executable. Right? Now that would be that's the simplest, absolutely simplest way of automating your testing. right, is to pipe in something from standard in. If you're being really clever, you pipe something in from standard in, and you pipe it out to a file. Right? So you pipe a file in, and you grab the output and put it out to a file. And now you just run that command. It takes that input and generates that output. And you've now got an automated test. Because you can test the output is the output you expect it to be. And then you can just run diff over the output you expected and the output you got. And if there's no difference, yay! I've just done an automated test. Right? Without actually having to use Travis or having to do anything else, I can just do this entirely in a bash script on my machine I'm on. Right? So this stuff is kind of a heavyweight version of that very simple testing system. The problem comes from that very simple system, as they're saying here, when you start having big systems where you get more things you need to test. Well beyond just, so yeah, well beyond just, oh, I put a text file in, I get a text file out, that's all I needed. Right? If you're looking at something like coding game, so I don't know if I've shown you guys coding game. We discussed coding game, yeah. So basically that's what it's doing in its testing, is just that very simple text in, text out, right, in coding game. But you guys want to move beyond that, and if you want to move beyond that, you need to have more interesting test cases. Right? The way coding game runs it, and you can actually see that if I log in. Oh yes, I wonder if we can. Will Google Plus log me in? Yay! So when you go to a particular task and Clash of Code, join the Clash. Okay. Oh, starts in. No, don't do a live. I was about to start a live test. I want to go back and go not Clash of Code, but go to Coders of the Caribbean. It's fine. And go in there. Okay. So when you see it run test cases, and all of this like instructions on how to do text, when it's playing my code and I'm running a test case, it's going to run them in serial. When the test case fails, it will, so it runs this first test case and just keeps running the test cases, and as soon as one fails it would just stop. Right? In this case it's running a competition between me and the boss, and it keeps running that competition because it starts you in random locations, and it's just trying to have a random events to see who will win. So it will keep running. So yeah, so these are basically a standard way of doing a testing environment, and you can consider this a continuous integration build environment. Okay. So questions about CIs and about semantic commits. Now, so how many of you are using smart commits? So you guys are. So you're just using the hash number for the issue and just doing issue tracking. So you guys are using Jira, or? Yeah. Okay. So, and that's all working?
So far.
Okay, good. Are there any of the rest of you using smart commits?
Kind of. Once.
You did it once.
Yeah, for issue tracking in GitLab.
Right. Why aren't you doing it more?
I don't know. We did it last semester, but then we suddenly stopped when we moved over to GitLab and didn't integrate it with Jira.
Right. So, I suppose at this stage it would be me saying, yes, you guys should be using smart commits, right? It feels like a little bit of overhead at the moment, but it does make life much easier to document later, right? And you guys are working on your theses. You're going to have to write this stuff up, right? And extracting things from your memory when you're tired in the beginning of May to try and remember what you did at the beginning of February, having had an Easter of getting drunk constantly, might have destroyed your memory of February. Right? All you remember from February is, oh yeah, we did some planning of stuff, and we wrote some code. I'll go and have a look at the code. Oh, not sure what that code's doing. Right, so it feels like it's overhead now, but really you should do it. Right? So you're saying you're using GitLab, so you're using our GitLab or
No,
the external, right? Because we have GitLab on prod 3. We have a GitLab is it .uvic or no? I have to try and find prod 3 .imt still there? Yep, it's still there. Oh yes, I'm not secure. Is that gonna let me go DBS? Why is it not? I thought we'd set it up to have a.
Well, we have some past history of not doing things secure.
Oops. Okay. Right. So we're not very secure between here and the system, and I believe I'm actually that. And oh, nope. It's constantly wanting. Okay, I will. Yeah, see, I don't want to show the stream my passwords because I could go and find my password in the other program and bring it across. But let's see if I can get in with my. Okay, yeah, okay, I'll save it. So we also have a GitLab repo here, and GitLab uses something a bit like Bitbucket. You can actually use the issue. You can use an issue tracker in it, and you can use smart commits within the issue tracker. So I think in our one city we have 15 open issues, and as you can see, we've got, if you look at all issues. We have panels still open, and so issue 100 is 111. And if we look at the commit like some of the earlier ones, we can see ones that are in review. And if we go to a particular issue, there should have been some commits connected to it, maybe. Oh yeah, so there's a 92 closed. So where is our overview? And if we look at the repository commits, have some of them sync. There was a lot of syncing having to go on. It's Marish and I doing things. Merge branch master. Where did our smart commits go? Have we done this badly and not done some smart commits in here? I'm sure we were doing smart commits. Okay. Obviously I picked the wrong repo. So if we go back and go into these are the numbers of the issues. Go back to GitLab. Yep, so the Bemoga guys were, I thought, oh, okay, they didn't finish up doing the server thing, so I must find, where are they? Nope. So as you see, I haven't actually been through here to find the particular ones in this where people have been doing proper smart commits. Has he been doing it properly here? So if we look at overview, there's issues. Oh, it's because that's more about maintaining issues and activities. and doesn't actually link to a code, is more linking to particular issues. So yeah, so you can use smart commits using the hash connected to the particular issue. So I would prefer you to do that. It will make writing up the professional programming course much easier, because I will be looking for smart commits, and also writing up your bachelor thesis will be better if you can connect your smart commits, right? And you can discuss that. Now, one thing you might want to do therefore is look at the code where you haven't been doing it, and now make a decision, right, we'll do it from now on, right? And then at the end of the semester you can compare accessing code that has no smart connections with code that does have smart commits, and look at the difference in the challenge of accessing that information. But as I said, with a commit message, you can do more than just a smart commit where you say, oh, it's related to this issue. You could also trigger further events. So in Bitbucket, have you guys looked at webhooks in Bitbucket? Webhooks? Do you know what a webhook is?
Yeah, we use it for pull requests or merging of branches.
Right. So and you use you set up the webhook.
So we use Slack, and we just to update the other developers.
Yep.
It's set by pull request.
Yeah. So the idea of a webhook or a hook is basically when you do something, you trigger an event, right? And if I log in, I think I can log in with Google. I think that should also work. Okay, forbidden. Why am I getting a forbidden? Okay. Yeah, it's in here. So if you look at settings on repos, so if I find a particular repository, and I go into one of these. Oh, that's not actually mine, so I don't want to do it by owner. I don't want to screw up someone else's repo, even though that's an old last year's course. So owned by me. I want to not find other people's. It's my work. And your repos. Come on, give me one that I can play around with. Where is my? Oh wait, that's better. Why is it only showing me other people's repositories? Okay, we'll go to that one. So in a repository, you can set up under I think it's under settings, the webhooks. So under settings in webhooks, you can set up your own webhooks. Now here, as you can see, I've already got some webhooks set up because I'm doing a lot of integration with stuff between projects. And here you can see this is I've got a HipChat one, and these are our standard webhooks, but I can add a new webhook, which would be if I commit to this, or like when I say the trigger, so either a repository push, or I can choose from repository trish, a fork, as you said, you could be a pull request, a commit, so a commit comment created. So if you create a commit comment, you can do it that way. And these are all the things you could do in pull requests to trigger this particular webhook. and this would be just a straight URL call, right? So I could do test and then any HTTP. So if you have a tool set up that is listening to a URL, right? So you've got a web server, you set up your own web server, Slack. So as you were saying with Slack, if you do a Slack webhook Bitbucket, if I looked for, oh, if I spell it correctly, Bitbucket Slack app directory. So there's a use Bitbucket with Slack, so there's a Slack help center which basically tells you to do what I was just doing. So step 1, view the Bitbucket, install, add configurations, add a Bitbucket configuration, set up Bitbucket for Slack. So under workflows, click webhooks, select add webhook button, give your webhook a unique name, and paste your webhook URL. You'll find this under the webhooks URL in the Slack app developer, and click save. Right? So you find a URL, you paste it into this location here under URL, and it will send information to that URL, whatever that URL is. Right? So if it's Slack, it could send a message, and with Slack you need to have a bunch of OAuth things to say that it's you and to check out things. But if it's just listening on an open port 80, you can send anything anywhere, right? I can, and anytime I commit, or I do a push pull request, or I do something to an issue, Bitbucket could notify somebody. It could be you could send a mail to, right? You could send mail out. You can do a whole bunch of things in here. Okay, so the webhook is nice because it just sends it to a web URL. You can also include, if I'm right, so I think HTTP status active, and if it was repository push, I think I just need to check if I edit one of these, skip verification, you can look at the documentation of all the information that gets sent when you use a webhook, right? So if you use a webhook, you'll find that it's make it big enough. So in here, using webhooks, advanced webhooks, so you're creating, so this shows you how to create, and with it, like user verification and SSL encryption, and how to do triggers. But if you have a look, for event documentation describes each payload. So when you have a webhook and you send data, you get a payload, which is the HTTP packet that gets sent when you do the webhook. And if you have a look under here, you can find out when you do a push, you'll get an actor, you'll get the repository, you'll get what the push is, and you'll get the new and the type and the name and the trigger. So you get all of this information is what's being sent over the URL. Right? So at the back end, you want to process all of that. Right? So you'd want to have a PHP script, or you want to have a Node.js script that would take all that data and then do something interesting with it. So when you get a fork, you only get this amount of information. So you get a JSON script. JSON packet basically is the payload, and inside that JSON is the actor owner repository, which repository in the fork, which was the repository. Right? Whereas if you have a look at this, this is a JSON packet. The payload is a JSON packet with actor repo, and inside that changes, and inside that new, and right. So you get these, and some of these are. This is an array. Right. So this is, yeah, that's an array of changes. Right. So you have you have 0 or more changes, and that array is going to be the array of changes you had. Right. So when you're processing the JSON packet, you'd have to understand you're getting quite a lot of information out of the repo when you do and that was a pull request. Right? So, push. So when you do a push, you get lots of information. Right? And so, as you say, Slack has a how do I deal with a payload from Bitbucket, right? So that's why it has that Bitbucket API. Okay, so we're going to have a break, and after the break, we'll come back and we'll look at your code. Yeah. Okay, so take a 10-minute break, and we're back at 20 past. Unless you guys, do you have any questions about this stuff? Right, so connecting Trello to, and you're using Bitbucket or GitLab? Your GitLab, online GitLab. Yep. So you'll find that I think there is a Trello API. So Trello GitLab. Basically, I'll just Trello GitLab smart commits. You GitHub and Trello integrate your commits. GitHub tutorial, it's all connected in GitLab. So
But like the concept of smart commit is that just connecting the commit to some issue. Is that the idea or?
So smart commits are mainly used for doing that, mainly used for connecting a commit to an issue, because that's what people are usually trying to do. But you can also use your smart commits to connect to webhooks or that sort of thing, right? So it's basically, the concept is whenever there is more information in the commit message than the English comment, right? So imagine your commit has a comment, but if the comment's just, you talking about what it is, then that's just a comment commit. But if it tries to do more than that, then they call it a smart commit, right? So and in Jira, and you can use the hash time to add time. You could use hash release to trigger some additional event, right? So that doesn't even need to link to an issue. You could just put anything you like into the commit. If it's structured data that's going into the text of your commit. Yeah. So
Our best solution to start with smart commits is probably putting our Trello board into the issue tracker and then committing to.
well, I'm sure, like, so here, GitHub and Trello. So there are ways of automating this process, right? So you got to pull requests in Trello. So what are they? Once you have a pull request to your Trello card, all the relevant information that is attached. So this is because Trello now integrates with GitHub. This means that your tracking pull requests just is a lot smoother. Blah blah blah. So the idea here is that already Trello and GitHub have been integrated. So in Trello you can say, oh, connect it to a GitHub repo, and it will. And then if you do smart commits in your, I'll just try to find that. They don't have smart commits, but do they have issue? How often do they have issue? So, where do they say commit status? So can you labels commits? Issues, they're down here. Okay. So you can attach issues to specific Trello cards attached to the feature. This makes it easier to say why something hasn't been merged. Right. So yeah. So for GitHub, they've already integrated with Trello. So if you do Trello and GitLab, just see that. Right, so as of the middle of last year, so this is relatively recent. So Trello's most requested third-party power-up is, yes, as of GitLab 9.4. So Trello now has connect to GitLab from your Trello board and attach the merge. So so if you ever look in the cards, it's add card to board, and that connects to GitLab, which is going to be, yep. So when viewing one of your boards in Trello, simply go to Power Ups and select GitLab Power Up, which sets up the GitLab merge requests for the Trello cards. Once attached card, click through attach merge requests to the card. Right, so there is a way of so there is a Trello connection to GitLab. So
You said you were going to create those for this components with the labels you like, for example, using hashtag time and connecting it with Trello.
no, so time won't be included, right? That's the hash time smart bit is a Jira specific piece of smart processing, right? But the hash number is fairly generic. The way that Jira does it is it actually uses the tag dash number rather than a hash, because it could be connecting multiple repos with a single Jira project, right? So it would need, it can't, you don't use a number, you actually use the project tag. But I would be, well, what I want you to do is to at least investigate the automation of the link between GitLab and Trello, right? Because there is something. If you can't find anything, right, that exists to link Trello with GitLab, there is at least something here because I found it. Document how you used it or why you didn't use it, right? So if you find it, discuss what it does and say, well, we didn't need this because of blah and blah, right? But I'd want to see that written into the professional programming report as around your code, right? Around that kind of automating of integration and automating of the commits messages, right? So, but it would, so it does appear that like merge requests and things can a Trello card that's attached to a GitLab merge request. So this, you can connect your cards to particular requests and things. So that's possible to do. I don't know if GitLab commits. GitLab commit Trello comment. GitLab commit Trello comment will monitor your GitLab comment with card numbers like hash and pull a format comment to that card of your Trello board modified from GitLab Webhook receiver project. So trolley, so this needs to be running on HTTP. So basically what they've done here is they've set up a webhook in GitLab that sends a URL to this particular, this is why they're doing HTTP lib2, right? So trolley is an HTTP lab2 because trolley will be a processor which creates a server, I assume. A Python wrapper that allows Trello API provides a group of Python classes to represent Trello objects. All classes come with basic Trello API method calls and easily extensible to suit your needs. Right, so trolley does this HTTP processing, right? So it says open up an HTTP entry so you can send me something. I'll process that and put it onto your Trello board. Right, so that's what they're doing to do a process GitLab commit messages and then do something interesting with them on Trello. right? So investigate that, right? You can choose not to use it, but at least read about it and write about it in the professional programming. Right, I will go in quickly get a drink. I'll leave that running. So do you go through CI stuff, continuous integration stuff? recommend a REST API. Generally, yes, I find the REST API, it's very standard. And so, how you implement the REST API, so are you looking at using loopback as an automated development tool for a REST API, or were you going to implement each of the parts of the REST API yourself?
I'm gonna get information about the API today, this evening, and then we can. But I've been looking about information about how like the database type. We were reading MySQL, and they were like, "Read something or something." It was you need to use tables or something, and it's easier to shoot yourself in the feet. So you're like a really bad phone. Yeah. But, so yeah, I'm gonna get information just to like if it's recommended to follow that path of the CPI.
The REST API is standard, right? So it gives you a standard way of dealing with things. It means that you can look at other REST APIs and know how to work.
Okay. So I look for information if I need that.
Yeah. So and you can look up loopback as a way of creating a REST API for you.
Okay.
Right?
Look that up.
So
Loopback, right?
Loopback.
Okay.
Yep. So loopback, like that. So it should look loopback for Node.js. Are you using Node?
I've used it once.
Okay. So the idea, because of course Node.js becomes your server, right? And so that's the server, and loopback creates the REST API for in Node.js for a MySQL database or a MongoDB or whatever database. So what database are you using?
Probably MySQL or MySQL because we've been like I had the database course last semester, so it's gonna be easier.
Right. Yep. So the loopback application uses so data sources MongoDB. So
well, that was the one that said that be really careful about MongoDB. I don't know whether you remember. It said be really careful with that one because you would probably end up fucking it up.
Right.
Yeah. Really good trials and I used MongoDB.
Yeah.
That was great for the cloud technologies called.
Yeah, but if you look up loopback, it should be yeah. There are some good tutorials on how to use these things. Okay, so code reviews. Right, bring your which will set. These guys will have to point them up here, and we'll do a code review. Oh, actually, just before we do that, one of the questions I quickly asked: do you guys write batch files in your Windows to do things? Have you ever written batch files on Windows to do stuff? You've done that? Okay. I didn't know if that's something you guys still do, because we did it as kids, if that's the right phrase for it. But we certainly did it, but I just don't know if anybody now does it. But why did my live game go off? Right, okay, so let's make that big. And point that up here. Right, code review. So you can plug your machine in and show us your code. So what number are you? So 1, 2, 3. You're probably 7. Right, let's have a quick code review.
Okay, I need to enter my kit.
It's a short HDMI cable, but it should work. Hopefully that'll also plug you in appropriately. There we go. Thing you've got the 3673 course.
I have my code in this side, but not in that side. Like
You could try and duplicate your screen.
this. There you go. Yeah, I don't have it. It's the same.
There we go. There's some code.
Okay. So the thing is, I'm not gonna show any result because I'm usually using my phone as my physical phone
As your test platform. Yep.
yes, as a platform because the phone here, the virtual machine here is
The virtual machine on Android is really bad. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, and slow, unless you've got a really grunty machine.
and you cannot show your position there.
No, yeah, you can do some mock position stuff, but it requires additional tools. Yep.
So the last task I was working on was the map task, showing the map for partial thesis. And yeah, we have a map activity where I call the map fragment. Down here. Down there.
Yep.
So here I called my fragment manager, and then I open my fragment position, which is on the other side. Here. Yeah, figure it out.
He does appear to need a mouse.
Even just like that.
Okay, so strings, you've got manifests.
Oh, I have. Okay, so so basically, I have my code to initialize the map, and a code to show my position, and each function can do it. So we use the library or the map engine map stores, map sport, and then I was working on OSM Droid and MapSort, which actually typically the same, but OSM Droid was easier to use in the beginning,
Right.
but maybe hard to use in future.
It can be a challenge with any engine, is to try and get a balance between easy to use at the beginning and powerful enough to use at the end.
So I had two choices. Either I go with OSM Droid or either I go with MapSort. And I actually went to OSM Droid first, but then I changed to MapSort again. And now I found out that you can actually, in the new version of OSM Droid, they actually have a MapSort inside it as an adapter.
Right.
So I tried to merge to go there, but it was not stable. So I
Right.
didn't want to take the risk for it.
Right.
So I came back to MapSort,
Okay.
which is actually working fine until now. So we don't know how it's going to be, but
Well, so you have to be careful with English when you say it's been working fine until now.
yes.
Implies it has now stopped working this minute. If you say something has been working fine until now,
Yeah.
that implies it has just stopped working.
No, not actually, because it's working perfectly now, but
Yes.
we don't know when we get the mock data how it's gonna work up with the markers.
Yeah, but I'm just saying in English,
Oh, yeah,
if you say until now, what you mean is it's just stopped,
Oh no, not yet.
right? No. So what you mean is it's working fine currently, right? And so basically in English, if you say it's working fine, that would mean you're convinced that it's going to continue to work. If you're worried that it might fail, you say it's working fine currently, which implies it's working fine, but there might be a change in the future, right?
It's working fine.
Currently. And then you say, you know, it's working fine until now, which means it's just stopped, right? So just, yeah. And also don't say to your girlfriend, you're my girlfriend
Until now.
currently.
Well, okay.
Because that's also a mistake. Implying things that might change suddenly, right? So, okay, so we've got my EO overlay, yep, so,
Add my code editor.
yep, okay, so if you scale that up so it's easier for people on here to see as well, yeah, make it, otherwise it'll be So do we have a
Normally it's just
control and scroll? Or something?
yeah, or control and plus or something.
Control plus maybe? Ooh, okay. So usually somewhere there's a view scale. If you control and scroll mouse? Okay. Editor? Really?
Yeah.
That's a really awkward way of doing it.
Yeah, but Eclipse had the same a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it wouldn't. Here, this is the 12. You had it before. Scroll up. There. Up. So that's in presentation mode. If you scroll up, you'll see that was one in edit mode, I think. No, scroll up on this side. Scroll up on this side. There was a 12 there. So override default fonts not recommended. Okay, so that's I saw a 12 and I didn't know what with because you'd scroll past it, but so and try apply and see what it does. 16 wasn't quite. Make it 24.
Yeah, but that was the diamond.
That's only the editor, not the code version.
No, that was the code in the back. Oh no? Oh no, it really, no, don't cancel. Go back there and fix that. And no, turn it off, turn it off. Yeah, turn it off. Okay.
The editor tab.
Mm-hmm. The editor tab?
In the option review Okay, it's taking a break now.
Okay, well we'll look at this code while it's taking a break. So setting up, so you've got a map which brings in the map, that's fine, your location's fine. There is no commenting in here about what's going on.
No, because this is just a function that shows the location.
Show your
I
location.
just finished it, by the way, so I didn't comment the last code fix.
Okay, so that's
So that's big now.
so there's an interesting discussion as like how you develop code and when you should comment, right? Because I was reading some discussion around students and commenting code, right? And what apparently you guys mostly do, and I also think that this is what I did, is you write code and when you finish writing it, you then write some comments.
Sometimes I'm commenting, but like not that much.
But it's not uncommon for you guys to be hacking away at code and when you're finished, you then add some comments to it. Would that be not uncommon? So one of the things that they discuss and is also a discussion around writing things down. So your design document, right? If you make your game and then write your design document isn't very useful because you've already finished writing your game. Right? So usually we recommend you write a design document before you write the game rather than just to try and convince us that you had a document in your head. Right? And comments to some extent often should be that way. Right? So one of the things that I did when I was developing is I'd often go in and just write some comments about what the function was going to do and then start putting code in next to the comments I'd written, right? Because when I started learning, we actually were required to write our pseudocode first, right? You'd actually write out full pseudocode and then turn it into actual code. But if you write comments about what functions do before you write the function, you've already got some comments there initially. And just writing the comments can help you think about what you're trying to do. And that's why we do a game design, because it helps you think about what you're trying to do. Right? In research, we get our students to write hypotheses, research questions. And you write your research questions before you do your research so that you have a direction to look in, rather than just doing something randomly and then finding something and go, oh, yeah, I was always looking for this. Right? Now, if you write comments and you only write comments afterwards, right, you're not getting the full benefit of writing a comment. Right? you're just getting the benefit of, you're just trying to give that benefit to other people. You're not getting much benefit from it. So to some extent, sometimes, and it's not for everything, but writing some of your comments beforehand as to what you intend to do, and then coding it up, helps you focus and think about what you're trying to attempt. So you get more benefit from writing the comment, and the person who comes later gets the benefit of seeing what you're intending to do. Right? So yeah, as a professional, start thinking potentially of trying to write some of those comments before you write the code itself, just to get the idea structured in your head. Okay, so.
I think I did it here somewhere. Where I'm initializing the map. First, I have my map. I map the what do you call it from the user interface side, and then I'm putting the control stuff for it, like make it enable clicking on it or something. Yeah, remove the zooming buttons and so on. And then they had some hacks how to use it for map storage website as a
Right.
how to use it. Yeah, and then I have try catch to try to find the file, and in case that went wrong, as I actually did the first time without try catch. I have a toast that shows me. Yeah.
The map doesn't exist if you fail on this try.
Yes.
Well, as I say here, we'll do a wee code review of this, right? Because you've said so. I just want to go through and have a look. So don't crash if the map. Don't crash if the map file. Don't crash if map file doesn't exist. Right, you mean don't crash as in without the try catch,
Yeah.
you're actually just having a complete app crash. So the catch now gives you something where it doesn't propagate that thing further up, right? So you're preventing a crash on not existing. You said this was a bit of a hack.
Kind of, yeah.
Where does the hack come from? And you said it came from somewhere.
No, actually, like, I didn't really understand why should I have it as, like, they say that it doesn't work without it, so I had it.
Who is they?
Well, Maps4G wiki website.
Right. So potentially saying that's where this hack came from.
Yeah, and they say that's a hack.
Yes, but referencing where this hack comes from
Yeah.
means that if they update their site and I'm in here and it no longer works, I see where you found that fix and I can go and see if they've updated it. So citing where you found a hack that you don't understand
Yes.
is like very useful in code, right? Because yeah, if it so anytime you say this is a hack, I don't know how it works, but these guys told me to do it, cite those guys,
Okay.
right? Because then, yeah, if that hack no longer, because if they update the operating system or they update the library and this hack no longer works, the people who told you to do that hack probably have had other people go there and say, hey, this doesn't work anymore. So they may have built a fix for that. So it's because otherwise you might have to be responsible for this hack, right? Because, you know, this is like, so when you're writing your bachelor thesis, when you make a statement, right, and you want to cite someone else to be responsible for that statement, right? So, you know, if I find, you know, if I want to say, you know, all women are short, right? If I make that statement without citing anyone, I have to back that up, right, with some evidence. Otherwise, I can point to a paper and say, no, those guys said that. Not my fault. If you've got a problem, you go tell them. Right? So with this line of code, if you put this into the repo and someone else in the team says, what the hell is that line of code doing? Right? Because you haven't said where it comes from. You're taking personal responsibility for this. So cite where it comes from, so you're not saying this was your hack. You're saying it's someone else's. Okay, great. Okay, so and also it just helps us later on with maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But actually, I didn't know I didn't try it yet, but maybe I should move this one inside try catch because it's a part of initializing the map itself. Like it's the same. Yeah, it's the same as.
okay, so if it's going to have a fail, right? would it be exactly the same fail as this? So this just says this fail as the map file doesn't exist. Right? Will this fail in the same way? Because if it fails with a different problem, you don't put it in the same try-catch. Right? Because if it's going to fail with a different problem, then it should be under, you could put a try here, and then have a different catch with a different exception to tell you that this one has failed.
No, it doesn't.
Right? So if it, yeah, if you put it in here and it fails with a different thing, and you sometimes see that, right? They'll say, oh, you know, I'll just put it all in one big try because, you know, I don't mind if it's either a divide by zero or a not exist, or I'll just treat it all the same, right? So, but it, like, yeah, if it's going to fail with a different reason, then you could put it in its own try-catch here, right? Aha! We have result. So you could put it in its own try-catch if it's going to fail in its own way, right? And you could put it in here and then just, based on which exception you get, you do different things, right? So that would be the other way of dealing with it. It kind of depends on what you're trying to tell me about the try and catch, right? So here, this try catch is about a file not existing, right? If you put something inside something this, which isn't about a file existing, then you're kind of subverting the use of this try catch to do more, right? That might be okay, but so long as you other programmers are following the same standard, so it's easy for them to understand how you're using your try catch. Okay, so yeah. Reference where your hack comes from. Your lines of code, yeah, okay, so map file, environment, yeah, the naming all looks reasonable. Other comments from you guys? Do you guys comment where your hacks come from? Or do you take personal responsibility for every line of hacked code you put into your, that's been copy and pasted from Stack Overflow?
In the app development class, I did it in the exam.
In the exam, you documented this hack came from here, but nowhere. But you can understand the problem, right? You guys can understand the problem of when you've written a line of hack code. I'm going to come back to you and go, well, why did you write this? Right? And if you point me to somewhere, that's going to make it like my life much easier. Of course, what I do as a programmer is I will often detect this sort of hack as going, wait a minute, that's really complex. That's probably come from somewhere, and I'll go looking, right? So, and that's what you guys do with error messages, right? You copy and paste them into Google, and Stack Overflow comes up with someone who's had the same error. Yeah, you can often find the same hacks for the same things. Right. Okay, so apart from that, yeah,
I moved these two lines because you just say that they don't have anything to do with the map file as fixes.
yeah. So having those later here. What do you guys think? Should you have those magic numbers in place here, or do you think they're a configuration?
Well, I'm not gonna use them at all, actually. I just wanted to test it if it's working or not.
So this is a test.
Kind of, yeah.
So this is test code, not actual code.
Yeah. It's working now at least.
If this is test code, not actual code, it should certainly be commented as testing or initialization. But if you're doing this in a professional approach, you would actually have this set up as a proper actual test, right? Because there's nothing in here that says this is a test. This is sent it in New York, right? If it's a test, you should be saying, you know, initial testing. It should have the word testing in here somewhere to comment it that it's a test. And ideally, it should actually be taken out. Because should this function without these lines of code?
Yes.
Right? So what do these lines, so these lines of code,
You cannot, it will not work if you will not zoom the map file somewhere, because the map file for nowhere is so big, and when he starts reading the map file, he starts from somewhere around the world, and you actually don't get the map. He starts from 0, 0, where actually nowhere does not exist there. So you just get a blank map. actually I need to center it so he can read exactly from the point where I'm centering it around, and then the map gets like bigger afterwards.
Okay, so you
So
do.
without the centering point, you cannot. You only get a empty map. Otherwise, you need to zoom around if you know exactly where we are.
Right, right. So you do need this. So this is not actual
Yeah,
test
but
code.
not internals, of course, not internal location. Not the location of internal Jobbik, but you need the center point for the center somewhere.
So you need something like this, right? So you need somewhere to start it. Otherwise, the map loading won't work properly, right? So you get the map, and then yeah, you set it to initial. This particular thing should probably come from a configuration file, right? If you're going to have it initialized to somewhere, because this works great if you're in Jobbik, but you know, if you're selling to a company or working with a company in Oslo, you'd want this to be Oslo. If you sell it to the UK, you'd want it to be somewhere in the UK. You'd want this to be some configuration, right? Because this is so, and this is required initialization. So I wouldn't say it's a test; it's the required initialization, right? So, and so I probably wouldn't say though in either like a comment around here. I'd probably make it a function potentially, which you pass things in, right? Which is, you know, set map and location, or initialize map location, and you could just call initialize map location, and then you'd have like a method in your map class which was initial map location, and it would be a value in there which could be overwritten by a configuration file or something like that. But yeah, I would say something about initial position here to refactor it, and I'd potentially take this out and actually put it in a function called initial map location or initialize map location. What do you guys think? Would you take it out and put it in a separate? You'd put it in a config file, so. But you'd read from a configuration file, right? And I'd like to see the word initialize somewhere in here, right? So, or first position or something like that, right? So rather than just saying, because you're right, it could look like you were just testing to see if it was working here, and then when I take it out, you might find the bug come back.
And considering that you probably want to have the map functioning anywhere, you could also initialize it to where you are, so that you can get input from your phone and pass that to the initializer.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm yeah. You would probably want to check to see whether they'd given you permission to get their current GPS location, but you could use current GPS location. Now this initialization happens only once you've got a proper map, right? Can you do this before you do this?
What?
Does the center to NTNU, so map.set center and map.set thing, does that work up here?
Not there, but maybe after that, before the tracking, yes. There.
So in here.
Yeah, you can do it there, but you will like, there's no.
Why doesn't it work up here?
Because the hacks need to be done before.
So this tile cache, this get context, map cache, map get model, display model, this map get visual. Okay, that create tile cache. This is not related to your tile cache, so I think these two lines should work here as well.
I'm trying to be honest. I tried it 1 second, but it didn't work. I think I didn't do it there. I didn't give it any.
Well, where it might not, the reason why it might is it might overwrite center and overwrite zoom level, right? It's possible, but because you've got this set zoom level max by 22, right? So you're setting the maximum zoom level there. So why do you set the max there and then set the actual number here? Right? I'm just wondering if this block of code could be taken up or could be done somewhere more when you initialize. So scroll up. So this .map, when you first initialize that, so this .map equals map view find map. So that's where you assign the map in the object, is at that point. and then you set clickable and you do the scale. So set min level, set max level. Here it would make sense to do set initial level. Right, so this down here where you've got this 15, right? If you take those two, try it, take those two lines, right, and then take them up to the top, because here we've got, if you put it in under here, and I'd put it after the min and max, right? So this, so you've got set zoom level min, set zoom level max 22. You could then set zoom level 15. Right, this line could be put here to say this is the initial zoom, because this now that for me is more consistent, because now I've done min max and I'm setting what the initial data is. Right, so that makes sense. And then you'd set the center after you'd done the zoom level, right? So that this would then be, this block is initializing the map block. Right, because it initializes it with whether it's clickable, it initializes all the things, including its initial position and its initial location. Right? Okay, so, guys, would make more sense? You guys would be happy with that? Happier with that? Okay. So,
those heights, those zero, min, and max, shouldn't they be constants?
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
they're probably constant.
They should be.
Yeah. And so, but why are they 5 and 22?
Because yeah, I found out that less than 5 is not necessary, and 22 is the most.
No, not necessary. And what do you mean not necessary?
Like the map is so small that it's like not necessary to have it. Like it's not necessary to give the user the chance to see it on zoom number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So zoom number 1, 2, 3, 4, like as in zoom out, so that's actually a tiny view of Norway. So you get to see all of Norway as a tiny
Well,
tree.
actually, you get all of Norway, and then it's clipping from outside, so it's
Yep.
like that.
So it gets a tiny little Norway. Right. So yeah, these could potentially be constants, right? Because there's no reason why they need to actually be in here. All these three numbers and this number should all probably be read from a configuration file, right? And in the configuration file, you should probably do explain 5, because of it's not necessary to go to 1 to 4. And 22 is 22 the max in the
It's the maximum for zooming.
right from OMS from OpenStreetMap under current implementation. Because they could add level 23 and 24 if they wanted to in the future.
22nd one, 22 was the last one I found.
The highest zoom that you could get, yeah. But there's nothing to stop them adding 23 and 24. Technically.
I can try it.
No, they could decide to add them. They might not support it currently, but if this number was to change, in the config file, if this number was linked to OMS version,
Or maybe, well, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Because
the map file I saw was on the 22, so yeah, so it's about the version of the map.
yeah, so if you connect this number to the version of OMS that generated that's the largest number, then I could see, oh, I've got an old version of OMS. Oh, look, this number is connected to the version of OMS I have. Right? So that's why it's being limited. So again, referencing where the number comes from to make it easier to update in the future if I need to. Right? And yeah, so these could be taken out and put into a config file. The config file has those references, as could these initial start positions. But I'd say, yeah, this now looks like our full initialization of the map metadata, and this is the map actual data. Okay. So that's not really refactoring, that's just reorganizing code within the function to make it a bit clearer. Any other comments you guys have?
This is the permission, asking for permission runtime for using the GTS reading external storage. So I check permission here, and then I show what I returning.
Okay, so you've got a switch, and you're greater than 0 and grant 0 is, so yeah, so this prevents this from giving you a null. And
This one here is just a number I specify in the beginning all the way up.
why is it, so permission request to,
246?
why is it 246?
Well, all permission requests actually didn't have a number, like you just add a random number like 123, 124 or something, and then you check if it's a number the same when you receive it back.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. That was the only solution I had that time. But yeah, it's not the last version yet, so I'm probably will have it on the config file too.
So no, so it's 246 is because it's 200 and,
No, like you can have one and it's working as long as you are checking.
right, so long as it's consistent. So you send it and you get it. So they give you a different number, so in case you wanted to send and resend, but with different numbers, so that you can see which one succeeded. I don't like 246 being there because it implies something meaningful to me, that there is some meaning behind this. Is this
At least comment it.
because like this might imply that this is version 24.6 or version 2.4.6 or like yeah, when a number, like, yeah, so no, that's yeah, don't do it unless you've commented it. Even though it's good to put it up here as a like permission request storage, right? It's just one of the problems with this number also, if I'm doing packet sniffing on your system and I see that number, I'm going to think that number's meaningful in my packet sniffing, right? And it might go, well, no, it's not actually meaningful. It's just the number. Now, if you wanted it to be meaningful, you could pick something complex, right? You'll see some people will use 1337 to be leet and to say, look, this is obviously me doing a hacky commenting number, right? Just because it's a hacky commenting number, because they want to be able to see 1337 somewhere, right? And so that tells them, oh, this is a made-up number, right? Because 246 doesn't sound like a made-up number, whereas 133. Anytime I see 1337, I'm almost assuming somebody's written that as a made-up number. Do you guys also get that feeling sometimes? Yeah. If you see a 1337, it's not because that's the score someone's got from adding things together. It's a made-up number, right? So if you want a made-up number, find a made-up number, right? Otherwise, yeah, use a 1 or comment it or something like that. Yeah, so, but no, I understand what you're doing here. I just would do it differently. Okay, so.
Not file too. Yeah, probably to be another file where it's so it should be a config.
That should be in config. Yeah. So here you can see what we're like. A bunch of what we're suggesting is move things out into a config file. Right? The first time you move something to a config file, it's really annoying. But once you've got a config file that's loading and loading parameters, and you've got it set up properly, putting them in the config file is relatively easy. So it's that initial stage is annoying. But once you've got a config file you're using regularly, it's pretty quick just to move things into it. It also makes it much easier to find all the things that are special about the program that are just about Norway rather than about the code itself. Okay. Yep. So have you used config file anywhere else? No.
So I won't have to do it now, but I will Google it.
Yeah. As I said, the first time you do it, it takes a bit of effort, but once you've got it working, it's pretty fast. Okay. You're using Android, so yeah, you can use the user preferences or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you could use user preferences, and then you could both save and load from config. But you can also set it up. I think you can set up your user preferences, and you can set up a config file in the resources, and that can save to user preferences in case somebody changes those from the default. So you have the default in the resources, and then you have user preferences, so that if the person set them to do something else, then they say those. Yeah. So, okay. So we've got a 23 there. That sounds like it's a standard Android thing. We do that a lot. So build versions in code is probably reasonable. And you say supports Android Marshmallow, so I know why this is 23 because it's a, yeah, so that's great. That's what I kind of expect, right? If I see a magic number that's related to some other system, this 23 happens to be because Marshmallow is Android version 23. That's right, and build version will tell me that anyway. But okay, so so initialize map, yeah, that's.
The one you saw now.
Yep. Yeah. So there's an initialized map, and these are meta. So this is metadata, and this is map data. So I'd almost put those in a block commenty kind of thing, right? So say block it. Say this is metadata, and this is map data. Okay. So how are we going for time? Oh, I've already run over time. Okay. So the message here for the rest of you guys: config files. Group things that change the same sort of stuff together, right? And reference where if you've got a line of code that's a particular dirty hack, just drop in any comment about it, right? It doesn't have to be a full citation. It doesn't even necessarily need to be the URL because URLs get out of date, but at least kind of just a couple of keywords of where you found it. That would allow me to like copy and paste those keywords into Google and find that hack again, then that would help. Okay? Right, okay, great. Well, we'll see you guys next week.
And comment all the functions, because I get a heartache.
Functions should have comments as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Even the private ones.
Even private ones, just so I can find something about what's going on.